Get out. We don't serve people like you here. That's what she heard the second she walked into that bank lobby, her heels barely touching the marble before the insult hit her like a brick. Two oversized security guards had her by the arms, shoving her toward the doors as if she was some kind of criminal. And behind them stood the branch manager, a woman named Karen Miller. Her face twisted with the kind of hatred you don't even bother to hide when you're used to getting away with it. Karen didn't just say it once she shouted, it made sure every set of eyes in that lobby turned toward the only black woman in a designer coat standing there with a dignity she refused to lose. Your kind doesn't belong here, Karen hissed. The staff chuckled. One teller even pointed and laughed. Look at her thinking she's somebody. Another shook her head and muttered, they always try to scam us with fake checks. Their laughter was the kind that doesn't just mock, it cuts, it dehumanizes. But instead of breaking down, instead of letting their poison sink in, the woman did something none of them expected. She yanked her arm free, stood tall, and with a calmness that chilled the air, she reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and made a call. Just two words. It's time. And that's when every ounce of arrogance in that room started to crack. The smirk faded from Karen's lips. Her face drained of color. The guards froze mid-step. Even the tellers went silent, their laughter dying in their throats. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to find out who they had just messed with. But let's rewind a little, go back a few hours earlier when this whole thing started. Her name was Dr. Naomi Carter. She wasn't just anybody, she was one of the top neurosurgeons in the country. She'd just come back from 6 months in Switzerland where she'd been doing cutting-edge research. Most people who saw her that morning probably just thought she was another woman in scrubs under a coat, driving a modest Toyota, carrying a purse that wasn't screaming brand names. What they didn't know, what nobody there knew, was that Naomi had 3 cars parked in a garage uptown, homes in 2 countries, and more importantly, a heart that cared more about her community than about showing off wealth. That morning, she carried a $50,000 settlement check, money she wasn't planning to keep for herself but to donate to a struggling neighborhood clinic so they could buy new equipment. She'd seen firsthand in Switzerland how modern tools save lives, and she wanted that same chance for the kids and grandmothers in her old neighborhood. She wasn't walking into that bank for luxury, she was walking in for justice. What she didn't know was that she was walking into a lion's den. See, Karen Miller had been running that branch for over 20 years, and in that time, she'd built herself a little kingdom. Not a kingdom of numbers and professionalism, but of prejudice. She hired people who thought like her, who looked at darker skin and saw trouble, who laughed at Hispanic families applying for loans, who found joy in humiliating anyone who didn't fit their picture of respectable customers. Her sidekick, a teller named Becky Rhodes, didn't just tolerate the racism, she thrived in it. She treated every black customer like they were auditioning for a scam. Then there was Mike Dalton, a bulky ex-cop turned security supervisor, fired from the force for excessive force, especially against minorities. And let's not forget Martha Jennings, the senior teller queen of those polite but cutting remarks that made you feel like you were dirt without her ever raising her voice. So when Naomi stepped in with that check, they smelled blood. She walked to Becky's window, placed the crisp check on the counter, and said calmly, I'd like to cash this, please. Becky picked it up like it was contaminated, held it to the light, sniffed it, turned it over, in and again. Where'd you get this? She sneered loud enough for half the lobby to hear. This looks fake. Naomi didn't flinch. It's an insurance settlement. I'm a doctor, and this is going toward medical equipment for the clinic. That's when Becky burst out laughing. Dr. You! Oh, honey, if you're a doctor, then I'm the Queen of England. The other staff joined in giggling like school kids. Martha smirked and muttered, they never quit, do they? And then Karen appeared strutting across the lobby, her heels clicking against the marble like gunshots. She didn't even glance at the check. Ma'am, we don't serve your kind here. You need to leave. Naomi held her ground, her voice steady, respectful. This is a legitimate check. I've provided identification. I simply want to make a transaction. Karen's face turned red with fury. Legitimate pleas. You probably staged some accident to get money you don't deserve. The crowd in the lobby shifted uncomfortably. A couple people whispered, "This doesn't feel right," but nobody spoke up. Then Karen did the unthinkable. She ripped the check in half right there in front of everyone. "Take your fake money somewhere else," she spat, throwing the pieces onto the floor. The room gasped. Even the customers who'd been silent knew this crossed a line. And before Naomi could even react, Karen slapped her across the face. Hard. The sound echoed sharp and brutal. Naomi's head snapped to the side, but she turned back slowly, her dignity still intact. Her voice calm, steady. "You just committed assault in front of witnesses and on camera." But Karen didn't stop. She screamed for Mike to arrest this criminal while Becky shouted, "Call the cops. Tell them she's laundering money." Mike grinned like a predator who'd just been given permission to strike, grabbing Naomi's arms and pulling them behind her. "Central, this is Dalton at First Savings. We have a dangerous suspect here, fraud, assault, terrorist threats. Send back up." The lies poured out as easy as water. They thought they had her cornered, another black woman humiliated, another day of business as usual. What they didn't know, what none of them could have imagined, was that Naomi had spent the last 6 months quietly acquiring a controlling stake in that very bank. While they thought she was off in Europe, she was orchestrating a takeover. She wasn't just a customer, they were looking at their new boss. And when those glass doors opened minutes later, and a tall man in a sharp Italian suit walked in, flanked by two corporate security officers, the air in that lobby turned heavy. His name was Jonathan Pierce, chairman of the board, and he wasn't there to congratulate them. Karen rushed over, grinning. "Mr. Pierce, perfect timing. Sir? We just caught a fraudster, money laundering violent." But Pierce's eyes weren't on her. They were locked on Naomi, her cheeks still red, her dignity still shining. His jaw clenched. His voice was cold steel. "Release her. Now." Mike hesitated, confused. "But sir, she's—" Now Pierce barked. The guards yanked him back, placing themselves between Naomi and the staff. Naomi straightened her coat, looked Karen dead in the eyes, and said, "You're right about one thing, Karen. Standards do matter. That's why I bought this bank." The words dropped like a bomb. For a moment, silence. Then Pierce laid out the documents, official proof that Dr. Naomi Carter owns 68% of the institution. The gasps were audible. Karen's face drained. Becky's phone slipping from her hand. Mike's smug grin vanished. Martha clutched her chest like the room was spinning. Naomi spoke again, her voice carrying through the stunned lobby. "What you've seen today is not an isolated incident. It's the result of decades of discrimination. And it ends now." Then one by one she fired them. Karen terminated for assault and discrimination, Becky for harassment and abuse, Mike for assault and filing a false police report, Martha for creating a hostile environment, Brad for discriminatory lending. The room shifted as fear replaced arrogance. And then justice. Police arrived ready to arrest Naomi based on Mike's false report. Instead, Pierce handed them the documents and security footage. Within minutes, Mike was the one in handcuffs. The officers turned to Naomi and apologized. News spread like wildfire. Within hours, the bank lobby filled with community members who'd been mistreated for years. Elderly customers denied service. Young families rejected for loans. Small business owners turned away. They came to see the downfall of the people who'd humiliated them and the rise of someone who finally stood for them. And in a poetic twist, Naomi walked right back to Becky's old teller window. She presented a replacement check, cashed it without a single issue, and right there in front of everyone, she signed the back and donated the full $50 and $1,000 to the community clinic. The lobby erupted in applause. Some cried, others shook their heads in disbelief. But everyone felt it, that shift, that justice, that hope. Naomi wasn't just running a bank now. She was rebuilding a community. New policies, outreach programs, loan reviews for everyone who'd been unfairly denied. A community board to hold the bank accountable. For the first time in decades, people felt like they belonged there. As for Karen, she was escorted out, red-faced and trembling, past the very people she'd treated like trash for years. They shouted their stories, called her out, made sure she knew her reign of cruelty was over. Naomi stood in the center of it all, not just as a survivor of humiliation, but as a victor who turned injustice into power. Now here's the real question. Should those employees ever be forgiven, or did they deserve every ounce of what came to them? What would you have done in Naomi's shoes? Walk away quietly or stand tall and make sure they regretted every word. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this isn't just a story about one bank, it's about every place where prejudice still hides behind a smile. And if you believe justice like this matters, hit that subscribe button and share this story, because someone you know needs to hear it.